This monologue, commonly referred to as Bottom's dream, comes from the end of Act 4, Scene 1 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. This monologue is essentially our transition from fairyland back into reality, back into the mortal world of Athens. So Bottom has just had his wild, crazy time with the fairies and his affair with Titania, Queen of the Fairies. And then he has this monologue when he's waking up from his dream. The monologue begins with Bottom sleeping, and he's almost sleep talking as he's waking up. When my cue comes, call me and I will answer. My next is most fair Pyramus. Then he starts calling out for his friends, his fellow actors, Peter Quince, Flute the Bellows Mender. So his monologue is starting where his dream began. When the mechanicals are all rehearsing their play, and then Puck comes in and transforms Bottom's head into that of a donkey, and then all of his friends run away and Titania sees him, is kind of where the dream begins. So now that he's waking up from the dream, he's picking up where he left off, which is the rehearsal with the mechanicals. And then he goes on to try to put into words what he just experienced. And I think that that's something that so many of us can relate to when we're trying to recall a dream, that when we are asleep and we are experiencing the dream, it is so vivid and so real that when you wake up, you feel like it just happened, but you can't quite recall what it was. But it feels so real that you're almost left wondering, did that just happen? I don't know. And that's kind of what Bottom is working through right now. And I mean, he says, methought I was, and methought I had. Now, what's fun about this is that, he's not saying it. We, the audience, can revel in the dramatic irony of it all. We know what he was and what he had. In the text, he doesn't actually say it. Methought I was and methought I had. He doesn't quite get to it. And then he goes in to say, man is but a patched fool if you were to offer to say what methought I had. Which basically means you would be a fool, you would be an idiot to try to make sense of this. That section of methought I was, methought I had is sandwiched with this revelation of, I've had a dream past the wit of man to say what dream it was, but man is but a patched fool if he will offer to say what methought I had. So it's sandwiched between Bottom coming to terms with any person trying to figure out what this means is foolish because no one can grasp it. And I love that he comes to that conclusion because as we know with Shakespeare characters, the fools or the clown characters, and in Midsummer, Nick Bottom is the fool, they are often the wisest characters. They are often the characters that speak the truth. And so here's Bottom coming to terms with this insane experience that there is no way even the wisest of men can explain it. So the fact that this commoner is coming to this realization is quite incredible. And then we get to the most well-known part of this monologue, which is when Bottom jumbles the words from Corinthians. So what Bottom says is, the eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen, man's hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report. And what the actual biblical verse is, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no heart has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. But God has revealed it to us by the Spirit. Bottom launches into this garbled 1 Corinthians after he realizes that he's had this most rare vision. And I'm going to quote directly from an article by Thomas B. Stroop called Bottom's Name and His Epiphany. The scriptural allusion, perverted as it is, nevertheless brings Bottom to his epiphany, his self-recognition. Bottom has discovered the bottom of God's secrets, has realized that they are indeed bottomless. He has realized that his entertainment at Titania's court was something more than ordinary reality. That Bottom's dream hath no bottom is only apparent nonsense. It turns out to be wisdom, whether he is aware of it or not. For indeed, God's secrets are without bottom. The spiritual powers, the fairies are throughout referred to as spirits, have revealed to this most literal-minded and childlike of men things beyond the powers of men's senses to comprehend. So Bottom's speech is not just one of comic relief, and it's not just one of astonishment, but it's one of wisdom and of realization. And it's really important and impressive when Shakespeare gives those moments to the fools, to the ordinary people. So Bottom comes to this realization and this wisdom and wants to celebrate his experience with mysteries. And so he says, I'm going to have Peter Quince write this down so that I can perform it and I can share it. But just because we never see this ballad in Midsummer shouldn't demean Bottom's epiphany at all. To quote Thomas B. Stroop again, his bottomless dream still belongs to the eternal world of spirits. Bottom has been changed. He has been transfigured. Literally, his head was transfigured. But he has changed as a person. And also the meaning of his name has changed. A bottom is the wooden spool a weaver winds his thread on. Nick Bottom the Weaver. So his name represents his job and who he is. But I think by the time he does this speech, he has indeed transformed from Bottom the Weaver, the job, to Bottom, like he says, his dream hath no bottom. It is bottomless. It's just full of this wisdom that he can't comprehend. Being a fool, being the commoner. Bottom is quite a simple man, but he's not stupid. And he certainly shows us that with this monologue. I almost find this monologue a little sad as well. Before this, when Bottom was with Titania and the fairies, when he was having his dream, he was royalty. He was living the life. Titania and Bottom have an extremely, if you think about it, a queen. And forget about the fact that at this point Bottom has the head of a donkey. But the fact that you have a queen and a commoner having an affair, and that Shakespeare wrote that and put it on the stage to which the queen would watch it, that's kind of a gutsy move. We tend to forget that that relationship between Bottom and Titania, no matter how short it is extremely scandalous. So he has this extravagant, scandalous affair with Titania, Queen of the Fairies. He has risen above his ranks, but now when Oberon and Puck put everything right, Bottom falls all the way back to the bottom. And it's quite sad because he has this extremely profound realization. And then he has to go back to Athens and is not appreciated for this. I mean, he does the Great Pyramus in Thisbe. The Athenians all heckle, but he has this astound realization on stage by himself and then has to go back into the real world where no one's going to listen to him. No one's going to care about what he realized. He's been very comedic this whole way through, and he finally has his moment of intellect and wisdom. And then it just goes on to be unappreciated. Well, I don't mean to end this on a downer because it is a comedy after all. Bringing it back to the idea of a dream. Puck comes out at the end of the play and says to the audience, "If we shadows have offended, Think but this, and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while these visions did appear. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding, but a dream. So not only does Puck evoke the feeling or the thoughts of dreams, but is also saying plays are like dreams. They're a way for us to escape, and they're also fleeting. They're also not forever. And I think that's one of the reasons why we like to go to plays so often, especially Midsummer Night's Dream. It is so fleeting, it doesn't last forever, but every time you come back to it, there's something new to discover. Just like when we have dreams and we look to interpret dreams, same thing with this play. We come back to it time and time again, try to interpret it in new ways, try to find something meaningful in it that perhaps we didn't see before, that we missed before. Just like Nick Bottom says about his dream, that it hath no bottom, is bottomless. So does this play. This play is bottomless. This play has so much to explore.
When my cue comes, call me and I will answer. My next is most fair. Pyramus. Hey ho, Peter Quince. Flute the bellows mender. Scout the tinker? Starveling! God's my life, stolen hence and left me asleep. I have had a most rare vision. I have had a dream past the wit of man to say what dream it was. Man is but an ass, if he go about to expound this dream. Methought I was. Methought I had. But man is but a patched fool, if he will offer to say what methought I had. The eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen. Man's hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report what my dream was. I shall get Peter Quince to write a ballad of this dream. It shall be called Bottom's Dream, because it hath no bottom. And I will sing it in the latter end of a play before the Duke. Peradventure, to make it the more gracious, I shall sing it at her death.